with Empress Judy and Associates offers a natural approach to better health. Treat yourself to a professional massage therapy and nutrition advice in a safe and relaxed atmosphere. Rejuvenate your body, mind, and soul at Nature's Touch Therapy. For an appointment, please call or WhatsApp 1-868-398-8282 or visit our Facebook page. Remember, your health is our responsibility at Nature's Touch.
Hi, Trinidad and Tobago. This is yours truly, Pastor Charles, streaming live from Port of Spain, Trinidad, Marival Road, 91.9. Every Wednesday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning. I tell you, we are going to have a TIME time in the presence of God. We will be praying, praise God, for our nation. We'll be praying for families. We'll be praying for those that are sick and those that are in need. Tune in to the best station, 91.5 FM Street Live, Port of Spain, Marival.
If you are highly learned, he can use you for his purposes, but not necessarily for the freedom, justice, equality, and advancement of your people. So the cause orientation that we saw in the 60s is no longer present. The cause today among most or many is rugged individualism. It's what I can get for me and my family, and to heck with you and your family. There's not a social consciousness that makes us feel the pain of one another. But something happened recently with the Gen 6. These young college students that were not around in the 60s came out of their places and went to Jena, Louisiana to let the world know we don't like what's going on. Now, I want to try and tie this up. Moses and Aaron said, "Rise up and get you forth." Pharaoh said to Moses and Aaron, "Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said." See, but he only did this after the last plague, which was the plague of death. Death came into his house and killed his firstborn, and then after that he said, "Take your people and just get out of here." Then Moses gave the children of Israel God's command, and they did according to the word of Moses. But then Pharaoh had a change of heart, because the slaves that God wanted to use, that he produced and purified through the furnace of affliction, Pharaoh then felt threatened that they would one day supplant him.
Come on, minister, come on.
So he decided to kill them all. And he sent his army after Moses and the children of Israel. Now, what is the army that Pharaoh sent out to kill the children of Israel? And what is this army that the modern Pharaoh has sent out to kill the children of the former slaves? Since we are the fulfillment of the prophetic picture of the children of Israel.
Listen.
What is Pharaoh's army? Is the Food and Drug Administration part of that army? Is the Center for Disease Control a part of the army? Are the pharmaceutical companies a part of the army? Is the American Medical Association a part of the army? Is the court system and the prison system part of that army? Is the closing of hospitals in the black community, is that a part of the plan? Is closing Grady Memorial, is that a part of the plan? Is the placement of black people near hazardous waste sites, is this part of the armed forces that have been let loose to kill the modern Moses and Aaron and to kill the modern children of Israel? Go ahead. Look at the death rates among black people. Look at the diseases that afflict us. Look at the government policies that promote this destruction of the black community. Is this an accident or is this on purpose? Preach, minister, preach. The army's behind us, but the Red Sea is in front of us. And the Red Sea represents war, revolution, and bloodshed that is going on, and the only way we can get through to that promised land which God has promised is that there must be a parting of the Red Sea, that the righteous may go through safely. And this is where we are today. And this is why both the Bible and Quran suggest a plan of salvation for the righteous. Are you ready to come out? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, quote, integration is a hypocritical trick to make you think that your 400-year-old enemy has all of a sudden become your friend. He's given us many promises. All of them have proved false. So are we ready now to accept the promise of God? Some of us are in a wilderness condition, murmuring against God because we came out from under Pharaoh but have not gotten where God wants us to go. So we're in the wilderness wondering whether we should go back and serve Pharaoh because it's too hard to think about building an independent nation. It's too hard to think about being free from our former slave masters and their children. We think it is too hard to build up an economy that will take care of the needs of our people. It's too hard. Let's go back and serve Pharaoh. So those who came out in the 60s, we used to say, what time is it? And we would cry back, it's nation time. But we don't hear you anymore. You're in the wilderness now, murmuring against those who would desire to separate and build an independent existence. You're murmuring now against the voices that call for reparations. You're murmuring now because you've gone back to Pharaoh and you're comfortable with Pharaoh, but the masses of your people are not. We want out of this. How long will we continue to suffer in every generation fighting the same people that our fathers fought, that our grandfathers fought, that our great-grandfathers fought, and now you're still willing to pass on to your children your cowardice because you still want a place with your former slave masters and
Greetings, beloved. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is but one God. Welcome to the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. I am Brother David Muhammad, and I'm going to be in studio with you up to 9 o'clock this morning. And in a short while from now, I will open up the telephone lines and take your calls on 3420081 and 4665391. And you can send WhatsApp messages directly to me on 3320214. And we are live on Facebook, the Street 919 FM's Facebook page. So, beloved, another week in Trinidad and Tobago. We don't want to waste any time. Let me start by saying congratulations to the Soca Warriors' new head coach, Angus Eve, who started or had his first game yesterday in qualification for the Gold Cup against Montserrat, and we had a 6-1 victory. 6-1. We scored more goals in that one game than we did in our last 5 games. Imagine that. And it was a really great performance. Don't think, oh, Montserrat. No, don't even go there. Don't even go there. Because Montserrat were just in the same World Cup qualification that we were in, and they pulled off, I can't remember exactly what their scores were, but they had some impressive scores. I think they drew 3 matches. And I must check that up at some course during the program. But I think they came up against El Salvador, Guatemala, one of those teams that give us trouble, and drew with them. They would have drawn either 2 or 3 matches. And plus, remember, we just played Bahamas and Puerto Rico and drew with them, which probably on the same level as Montserrat. And here we are, 6-1 victory. So congratulations to Angus Eve. And on Tuesday night, we will be playing one more game, which will be against the winner of Cuba and French Guyana. Cuba are tipped to be the winners there. So we play Cuba on Tuesday night, or French Guyana, and the winner of that game, Trinidad and Tobago versus Cuba or French Guyana, qualifies for the Gold Cup. All right. So Tuesday night will be a big night for football for Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, I know a lot of the wind has been taken out of our sails, being eliminated from World Cup qualification for 2022. But the journey to 2026 actually started last night, and it started with that very encouraging victory. So congratulations to Angus Eve. A couple of players that I didn't even recognize. The young Moore, some young brother named Moore, came on as a sub, scored 2 goals, brilliant goals. So congratulations to the whole team. All right, also, now my main focus for today, and I'll probably get into this from the 8 o'clock hour, but my main focus is that last week, Tuesday, we celebrated the 80th birth anniversary of Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael. And on Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, as I do every Wednesday at 8, I did a live Facebook presentation on Kwame Ture's 5 main ideas. So I'm going to share that later on in the program. It was also, this week, Patrick Manning Day, the commemoration of former Prime Minister Patrick Manning. And, I was looking through a lot of these snaps on social media about Mr. Manning, and to be totally honest with you, I was able to share a lot of the sentiments because people were basically saying, you know, okay, so when you were here, former Prime Minister Patrick Manning, we saw you as a average of sorts Prime Minister. Okay, there were issues, yeah, there was Calder-Hart, and there was the what is perceived to be this continuous insensitivity to the poor. And, you know, we had the same old water problems and, well, high food prices and so all of that. So when Mr. Manning was with us as Prime Minister, these are issues that came up. But now that he's gone, wow. I mean, we miss that man. I miss him as a Prime Minister. I had, at the time, issues with Mr. Manning. Trust me. I had issues with Mr. Manning. I met with Mr. Manning for the first time when I was 28 years old. 28 years old at Chepstow House on Frederick Street. And this was after TV6. I think it was hosted by Andy Johnson back then. They had these series of live town hall meetings. And Mr. Manning was a very dynamic opposition leader. In fact, in his first budget response in 1996, for the 96 budget presentation, I mean, he hit hard. That's when he came out and identified the racism at Petrotrin and said, Petrotrin has come like Petro Singh. And I mean, that was the first time probably in his life that he would have made public statements about racial discrimination against African people. But for his whole span as opposition leader from 1995 to 2001, he was really strong. As that's how opposition politics is. And that is why persons who support a political party have to be careful when their party is in government. Because a lot of the things that you fought for, that a government falls back on regarding keeping their word or promises to the public, when they fall back on their word, you as supporters of a party that's in power, you have to be so careful not to defend it. So, under our political system, all political parties have liars, all of them. And there's not one political era where we have had representation of those who are in office who have not lied to the people. Now, all I'm saying is, to those of us who support a party, when that party comes into office, don't defend the lies. And don't oppose the same principles that you would have supported. You see, that was the whole problem with this issue with greedy and needy. So when the last government was in office, there were so many voices, so many activists, so many who were socially concerned, so many religious groups, so many cultural groups that lifted their voices against the oppression or the racism or the exploitation that would have been taking place at the time. So when your government comes into office now, you have to maintain that same standard of what you want for the people. We all want justice for the masses of the people. We all want lower food prices, more reasonable taxation, a better education system, a better healthcare system. All of us genuinely and sincerely want that. So if I'm supporting a political party that's in opposition, trying to get into government, and I'm saying, we need to lower the food prices, we need a better healthcare system, we need better schools, we need more justice in the courts, we need prison reform. And then the party that I'm supporting now gets voted into office, and the party that I was opposing is now out of office. I am still supposed to have the same passion for building new schools, fixing the healthcare system, reform of the prison, better education system, more justice, lower food prices, more reasonable taxes, all of those issues. But I cannot come now after lobbying for 5 years. My party now comes into office, and when issue of food prices come up, instead of calling for justice for the masses, I'm saying, but look at these people. They have color TV in their house, so they don't need any. They need to look at their hair, look at their nails, look at how the women dressing. They're too whatless. They're too this and that. And you start to chide and chastise and publicly humiliate the same people that you were defending when you were trying to get your party in office. And this happens in our society like a revolving door. Listen, I hope I get to speak about St. Lucia sometime soon, because an election is coming up in St. Lucia. And if you study the political history of St. Lucia, it's a very similar kind of revolving door system as we have, with people voting parties out rather than voting parties in. There was a man named John Compton in St. Lucia. He was the premier for about 12 or 14 years before St. Lucia became independent. And he was running a campaign, again, against the racism of the British, whom he felt wanted the entire Caribbean to be permanent second-class citizens in a British empire. And he said black people in the Caribbean are targeted as forever being citizens of a lesser value to the sovereign state. And he campaigned hard with these ideas. It was either 12 or 14 years. And when they became independent, John Compton was voted out within 3 months. Imagine that. You are rallying the cause for over a decade. Then as soon as the country becomes independent and they have an election, he's voted out. But guess what? He's voted back in again, and he stays for almost another 10 years. And then he resigns in office because he was up in age. And then they brought him back like 10 years later. It's a very interesting history. So he was premier in the 1960s. Think about that. In the 1960s, this is John Compton of St. Lucia. And St. Lucia would have become independent around 1979, so he was first prime minister. And then 3 months in, he's out. Then he's voted back in, stays for a prolonged period, about 10 or 12 more years. Then he resigns. The other party wins, back and forth. Kennedy, Simmons, and all these names are slipping me now. And then they bring him back in his old age. He was like 82 years old. And they brought him back as prime minister. So it's like he's there with them, fighting for St. Lucia independence, rallying for the rights of the people, calling for justice for the masses. Then he comes in. It's a system of hardship. That is the devil's political system. You're in there. It's like you're in a snake pit with vipers hissing and wasps buzzing and cats scratching, picking at you. It's like you're in a nest. You're a prey. And you're trying to do a balancing act between justice for the masses, but at the same time rewarding your capitalist financiers and the secret hidden hands and puppet master strings that are pulling at our politicians. You have to do a balancing act. You can't just straight up ignore them. That is the devil's system. So when the people say, nah, we can't take this, and get rid of the man, and then someone else who was talking a strong talk is voted in, and then when they're voted in, they say, what? He's worse. Bring back the first one. And then the first one comes back in, and they say, No, he's worse than ever before. He's worse than he was in the first place. Bring back someone else. And then someone else, again, who's given that strong talk, is voted in. Then it's more oppression, more hardship, more hard times, higher food prices, lower minimum wage. Then they vote him out. So St. Lucia brought back in John Compton in his 80s. And I don't think he lasted for a full 2 years. He had a series of strokes. John Compton in St. Lucia, they said while the doctor was treating him for one set of strokes, he was having other strokes. It was horrendous. And he died 2 years into his final stint in. Now look at Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell. Dr. Keith Mitchell, again, was a strong opposition leader, voted in, then voted out, then voted back in again. Imagine a man who was voted out, where he would have won the election with something like 8 out of 15 seats. And then he would have lost with something like 6 or 7 out of the 15. That means the country said, at first, we want you as our prime minister. Then they voted him out. But based on their experiences with the one who they voted in afterwards, who was Tillman Thomas, they voted him back in with all 15 seats. Now, again, look, just think of the political science behind that, right? You have a man as prime minister. You voted him in with a slim margin. And then, based on your experiences with him, you say, we don't want this man to be our prime minister anymore, and he's voted out. But based on your experiences with the man who he was voted out for, he's voted back in again, but this time unanimously. So it's clearly what the voices of the people are saying. The voices of the people are saying, listen, we don't like any of you. All right? We've already said we don't like you, so we voted you out. But that other guy, he's even worse. So we're bringing you back 15 out of 15 seats. Dr. Keith Mitchell. And when you follow the pattern in a lot of Caribbean nations, when you follow the pattern, it's like a revolving door. People are constantly saying, it's not that we like you, it's just that we can't stand the other guy. Look at Jamaica. Don't get me started on Jamaica, because the current prime minister now, he was voted out already about 10 years ago. Andrew Holness. Andrew Holness, probably the record in the Caribbean. He was Prime Minister of Jamaica for 38 days following Bruce Golding. That would have been 2010. 38 days. And the public say, nah, we don't want you. Get rid of him. Vote him out. And then next election, they vote him back in. They say, nah, yeah, we don't like you. But the person who came after you is worse than you. So we're bringing you back. And there's a whole long pattern of that happening in the Caribbean. It's a very, very, very interesting study. Even Mr. Manning, look, Mr. Manning was our prime minister. And he was voted out, he was voted back in. And the thing is, when he was voted out for the last time, it was such a shock. Because that was probably one of the best eras of any prime minister after Dr. Williams, as far as legacy is concerned. Now, I was in Jamaica about 3 years ago, as I'm there every year for the Marcus Garvey celebrations to do one of the feature addresses. I was the keynote speaker that year, I think, or the year before that. And at the airport, I'm always sad to leave Jamaica, trust me. So I'm at the airport and I see Jerry Nerese. And so we're there, in the line together. And then when I'm at one counter and he's right next to me, and he says to the lady who was attending to me, he says, this man here, he gave our government such a hard time, huh? But take care of him, take care of him, jokingly, and we had a laugh. And I said to Jerry Nares when we were walking to the departure gate, I said, Jerry, I have to say now, this would have been 2017 or 2018. I said, Jerry, let me tell you, I appreciate Mr. Manning a whole lot more now than I ever did before. Now that he's gone, I miss him as a prime minister. And Jerry, he understood. He said, yeah, I mean, that's how it is. And yesterday, was either yesterday or day before for Patrick Manning Day, I saw so many people expressing that sentiment. That, when Mr. Manning was, we don't even want to go over the night when he lost, how he was treated. Even Crow had to sing about it, that we should have never treated Mr. Manning so. But what he did with GATE, government assistance for tuition expenses, and the way that same GATE program was butchered by the two governments that came after him. When UNC came into power and the terrible things that they did with GATE, one of the things that I was most anxious about was all of that being fixed and the new government returning it to exactly as it was when Mr. Manning introduced it, only to find out that it was butchered even more with the so-called means test, and it was something else. But we will be remembered as a Caribbean nation that did that. And Mr. Manning will be remembered and appreciated forever. And I'm not comparing him directly, but on terms of what he did in office with that, was quite similar to what Nelson Mandela did as president of South Africa. A lot of people had criticized President Nelson Mandela because of lingering racism in South Africa, saying many of the similar kinds of problems that Nelson Mandela as prime minister, as president, or as campaigning for president, would have condemned, what the ANC would have fought against. So a lot of those conditions at the end of Nelson Mandela's term still existed. But in the spirit of trying to always pick out the best in our people, one thing that Nelson Mandela is credited for is creating a black middle class of 11 million Africans that did not exist before. Nelson Mandela, through his educational and social policies, put black South Africa on a path of upward social mobility. So the amount of doctors, nurses, lawyers, magistrates, judges, attorneys, school teachers, highly skilled actuarial scientists, accountants, the amount of upper income South Africans that were elevated into this black middle class, 11 million Africans. They say Nelson Mandela will forever be remembered for that, as far as his politics is concerned. And likewise, Patrick Manning, what he did was, in a similar way, put measures in place to create an expanding middle class out of the poor. I remember I started teaching tertiary level education around 2010, 2011. And I remember the amount of people, when I was actually in UWE in my second year, when Mr. Manning introduced GATE. This is 2000, I entered UWE in 2004. And Mr. Manning introduced GATE in 2005, effective from 2006. And I can tell you, I can testify firsthand that when I entered UWE 2004, I was in the Faculty of Education. And every evening, it was either Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, we'd have 3-hour classes from 5 to 8. Every day, every evening, 5 to 8. I knew what it was like. And that next year, 2005, going into 2006, it was like a floodgate had opened at UWE. Because every evening I would go to UWE, park anywhere, come out, go into the classes, go into the library, do his studies. It was almost like a ghost town in comparison to what it became. But as soon as that GATE was introduced, from the 2005 going into 2006 semester, it was like a marketplace. And within the next couple of years, they had to build so much additional car parking space. Because if you get to class late, a little 10, 15, 20 minutes late, you couldn't get a parking space anywhere. And the way in the Faculty of Education, which was on the other side of the road to the... Now, you have that kind of pattern. 7 years from then, or 10 years from then, you're beginning to see an increase in general standards of qualifications for the graduates, upward social mobility, better education, more opportunities, higher qualifications. And we will always, even though it was interfered with after, for the most part, it still remains. And to me, that would be the main legacy of Mr. Manning, as well as his foreign policy. His foreign policy regarding Haiti in 1994, with the invasion, with Jean-Bertrand Aristide, and also with Cuba. Trinidad and Tobago has always stood with Cuba. I mean, the FBI was spying on Dr. Eric Williams since the late 1970s, talking about neutralizing him and replacing him with someone who is not as sympathetic towards Cuba. You know, so to me, that's the legacy of Mr. Manning. Anyway, let me open up the telephone lines. 342-0081 and 466-5391. And to me, that is something politicians need to be mindful of. What is their legacy going to be? What is going to be said about you after you leave? And who's going to be saying it? All right. Caller, first caller for the day. Good morning. You're on the air. Oops. Caller, can you hear me? All right. Caller, can you hear me? Caller, can you hear me now?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Salam Hakim Mohammed.
All right, walaikum salam.
Apologies, you answer another line because I got it.
Yeah, well, I tried to, but the call didn't, I wasn't hearing the person. My apologies to that last caller, but you can try again.
Brother David.
Yes.
I want to say something to I have one person always admire Mr. Manning.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, I'm a person, if I go to a meeting or anything, I always study back. I don't go to the front. Because I believe from the back you could see everything that is happening up front. I saw Mr. Manning and I saw Dr. Keith Rowley on two different occasions. Mm-hmm. One was Dr. Rowley was in Savannah in Tagarigo. And the other time I saw Mr. Manning, he was going to a meeting in Private Valley. And when I watched how Mr. Manning passed through the crowd, and I watched his facial expression, and how he greeted people as he go along, you could have seen that he was a man with love from the heart for the people. That is what I saw in Mr. Manning. I saw Dr. Keith Rowley Savannah. And when I saw Dr. Keith Rowley Savannah, I saw an individual with a distance from the crowd. He was there among the crowd, but the way he stood and how he was looking over the crowd, I saw two different human beings. And I say, anytime I had to support, but I vote for PNM, I vote for Mr. Manning. He got a vote once because I voted was twice for PNM. Understand? Anyway, I want to go back to, you know, my points are Africa. And in Africa, you know, today, I think the building today, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, he died about 2 weeks ago at the age of 97. Right? He ruled for 20-something years. And after I lose election, they say it's one of the smoothest transaction I ever had by a leader who lose the election. But I remember that they played a speech for him that he made some time ago when he was in power. He said there will be a United States of Africa. He said that. And when I'm looking and see what is going on in Africa, time is longer than twine. It's coming, my brother. They have decided now to integrate the Swahili as the official language. You have the other dialects, official language, teach it across Africa. They also are introducing the one currency in Africa, where they know they have opened up the borders already. So this is the stage in which Africa is going. And I'm watching some young African women and the work they are doing, the books they are putting out. It's amazing. And I've said already, they are going to take Africa and they're going to carry Africa, because you have some leaders down there that you need to get rid of, because the Europeans have them there for their own economic interests, and they want to keep France and America, especially France. They want to keep them down inside there, understand? So they can continue to control the resources and have the people living in abject poverty. I'm seeing now that place that produces most cocoa in the world, they can't export it now because of the COVID. But you know what is happening? The people there, the women there, they are using the cocoa locally and producing what is supposed to be produced from the cocoa to make their money. And as this COVID go along, they're going to expand and they're going to realize that they should have been doing this years ago. In Trinidad and Tobago, I'm observing with this COVID, there are some young African women, especially some in Tobago, people who have had big jobs, you understand, because of the COVID. They are now getting into experimenting things that their grandmother and grandfather taught them, and they are going online and they are making money, they are producing things. And that is what we need in our community as black people. I say hats off to Africa. I may not see everything. This is me, I'm a realist. I know one day I'd have to go. I may not see things that I would like to see, but I've seen more than I had expected to see. You understand? And I know that this is going to come. We're going to have one Africa, and we're going to have one currency, and we are going to rise, because they are doing things in Africa and they are not publishing it, you know. They are keeping it down with this COVID thing. They show you a guy that take a swab, and instead of going straight, it's flexible. And this guy that said you can test 10 people and get a test for 100 people, they wouldn't bring that. And I want to see the Cuba. If I have to take a vaccine.
Right. If I have to take a vaccine, I'm taking the Cuban vaccine.
Yeah, nowhere, as I said before, and nowhere. Because see what's going on? This is right now, it's a $1 trillion business, you know. $1 trillion business. What's going on outside out there? And all they're doing is looking to suppress the smaller countries so that we should have a point in time where they pay big for this. But David, I was trying to get in last week, I didn't get in.
Right.
You understand? But you have a wonderful day, and your family, and reach home safe, my brother.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Caller, good morning. Caller, good morning. Okay, so we're having a problem with this line, apparently. I don't know what it is. So, call the 3420081 line. All right? 3420081. No, not this one. Caller, can you hear me? Caller, are you there? Can you hear me? All right, so please try and call the other line, 3420081. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning, Brother David.
Good morning, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Great.
And yourself?
Great, thank you.
I'm making a general comment here. You know, it's kind of unfortunate that we wait until persons die to speak highly of them.
Always.
Accolades. And I think we should stop doing that. When the person is alive, whatever good they would have done and contributed, we need to tell them at that point in time. Because
absolutely,
after that, it just sounds like something scripted. With regards to Gate, what Mr. Manning did was a really impressive, very ambitious.
It was revolutionary.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
However, we ourselves would have, not me personally or you personally, would have
wasted it.
Exactly, by going and not finishing the program, doing 3-4 jumping in and out, and it has reached where it has reached now because it couldn't be sustained at that level. Persons who were able to go, paying on their own, using the program, and I say again the wastage and all that. So it is where it is because we ourselves would have abused that situation. So I just wanted to say that, but we give all these praises of Mr. Manning now. However, when he was there, we weren't saying those things. A lot of nasty things were said about him. So when I hear in retrospect people talking about people who would have done how they could do, I say, I have a moment. So you have a blessed day and reach home safe.
Thank you so much. The thing is that you never know what's coming after. So, I mean, I remember George Chambers. I mean, he had obviously huge shoes to fill coming after Dr. Williams. And he was given hell. But looking back in retrospect now, you know, we can appreciate many of the things that he did. Caller, good morning.
Morning. How's the troublesome caller?
Good morning.
One didn't get you there. Yeah, morning, nation.
Yes,
morning. I'm 91.9 crew. Yeah, that's and to you, Brother David. Yeah, that's a pet subject for me. That subject close to my heart. I used to say Mr. Patrick Manning was from beyond his spheres. He was not a normal entity. He's one of them leader entities. What up, man? You know, I got into a lot of arguments at the time. I used to be telling people, listen, this is not going to be taken away from me. For me to know that this is something that I have, and a lot of people didn't have the objective view, which is what is be concentrating on in terms of we must be able to have an expansive view to see where, you know, all right, plenty of the problems in school is because the students themselves, due to probably parenting that fall short or environment that fall short, the inability to give them an objectivity about what they're subjected to at this point in time. You understand? Right. There isn't an objective, you have to kind of like pull the person's brain out for them to watch where there is.
Understood. But we pause for our break now, and then we'll be right back with the 8 o'clock hour. Stay with us, don't go away.
Just take a time from the inside. From the inside of so me. From the inside, yes, of me and me, you delight. I want you to last in my life. From the inside, yes, right up from the inside. may you delight. I want you to delight in my life. On the inside, yes. Part of the in. Oh, boy, this jacket holding my dog. He said, me, come feel. On the inside, yes. Of me. And set me on fire. On the inside. Hey, say on the inside. Hey, give me it. Who say? Hey, say all I want is for you to be glorified and you to be lifted high. Hey, all I want is for you to be glorified. You to be lifted high. Say all I want is for you to be glorified. You to be lifted high. All I want is for you to be glorified. You to be lifted high. Come here, me say, fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord.
Are you experiencing loss of vision, or are your glasses broken? At Value Optical, we're open, and we're here to help. You can have your urgent eyeglasses in 3 days with packages starting at $695. When you visit us, be mindful of the 3 W's. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Please call us toll-free 800-2020 for expert advice on your vision needs or to book your appointment. Value Optical, caring for your eyes.
Looking for a safe and relaxed professional massage therapist and nutritionist? Look no further. Nature's Touch with Empress Judy and Associates offers a natural approach to better health. Treat yourself to a professional massage therapy and nutrition advice in a safe and relaxed atmosphere. Rejuvenate your body, mind, and soul at Nature's Touch Therapy. For an appointment, please call or WhatsApp 1-868-398-8282 or visit our Facebook page. Remember, your health is our responsibility at Nature's Touch.
Hey, you keeping safe? I hope so. I don't really know what will happen when everything will back up, but the line had to go on. But in the meantime, just come online with the live wire. I'm on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. Or you could check us out on the live on Facebook at the Street 919 FM or on YouTube at Street TV. Don't forget to share the live. That might just be as important as you keeping safe. So mask up, sanitize, tune in to the Street 919 FM, Lime on the Live Wire, Saturday afternoons, 5 to 8 p.m. Don't worry, I gonna be home in time for the curfew. keep safe.
Blessings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You are invited to listen to the Final Hour broadcast heard every Monday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning on The Street 919 FM radio. Here my mom, Pastor Helen Garcia, and myself, Pastor Valentine Garcia Jr., preach the Word of God to the elderly, youth, and children. We can be contacted at 629-0113 or 623-8444. The church is located at 26 Prince Street in Port of Spain. We look forward to you joining us. God bless you.
As my life I lay it on the altar, as my life.
Better vision for your physical eyes, and through the eyes of faith, let healing arise in your mind, body, and spirit. At Natural Heal Ministries, we teach kingdom principles for living that brings the blessing of God to your mind, body, and soul.
NHM Professional Associates are located at number 10 Moody Stewart Street, Monrepos, San Fernando. For more info, contact Dr. Desmond Phillip at NHM on 349-3494.
NHM Professional Associates can be heard live on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 9:05 to 9:55 a.m.
Share the line. Share the line. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the line. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the line. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the line. The Street 919 FM.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
So there's a need for brotherhood.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen. Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
Brotherhood is demanded.
Black man, get up. Black man, stand up. Black man, you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential, it is urgent, and it is compulsory. But the time demands brotherhood.
Welcome back and welcome to the second hour of the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. We're going up to 9 o'clock, and in a short while from now, we will continue to take your calls on 3420081. So, on June the 29th, this week, which was Tuesday, we celebrated the 80th birth anniversary of Brother Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. Born in Trinidad and was a revolutionary leader, philosopher, thinker who put this country on the map. I have referred to him as the greatest hero ever to come out of this nation. And I just want to cover 5 quick ideas from Kwame Ture, 5 concepts that he shared and really educated the world with. The first one being black power. It was Kwame Ture, he did not coin the phrase black power, but he popularized the phrase black power by the fact that the whole world now is saying black power. It came from a Trinidadian, Kwame Ture, then known as Stokely Carmichael. Now, Kwame Ture was involved in something called the Freedom Rides, which was during the Jim Crow law era of segregation and racial discrimination in America, it was outlawed for black people to go into certain white establishments, hotels, restaurants, in some places separate drinking water fountains for whites and blacks, separate toilets for whites and blacks, etc. And in the earlier part of Kwame Ture's struggle, he was participating in that effort. And when he was just 19 years old, as a student of Howard University, he was arrested 32 times for fighting against racism. Now, I want you to think about our average 19-year-old today who's a student, and what could be a traumatic experience of being arrested once and thrown into a prison. One of the prisons that Kwame Ture was put in, at the Parchment State Farm prison, he was in a 6x9 cell for 49 days. Think about that. And wasn't allowed to shower every day and was given terrible food. He volunteered himself to go through that persecution 32 times as a young man in his fight against racial discrimination. And a major turning point, because he marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King in the civil rights struggle. But when he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1966, the same year that he began to share the phrase Black Power, that would have been June 16th, 1966 in Mississippi, he said, what we're going to start calling for now is Black Power. And he got the audience to shout, Black Power. That idea, the first key theme, Kwame Ture said, is possessed by black people through our solidarity. And he said in the book Black Power, group solidarity is necessary before a group can effectively, from a bargaining position of strength in a pluralistic society, join on to another group. That's our problem right there. We don't want to unite among ourselves first, but we want to unite with everyone else. No, we must find solidarity within first. And I've pointed out on numerous occasions in Kwame Ture's book entitled Black Power is the title of chapter 2. Chapter 1 is entitled White Power. And Kwame Ture says white power cannot even exist unless you have black politicians representing white interests. And if a group as a community are not unified and solidified, then political representatives among us will be used as bargaining chips by those who exploit us as a community. And this black power, Kwame Ture, he used the term dynamite in the ghetto. And he said black visibility in politics is not black power. The power that we have must be that of the community, and it must emanate from there. He said the black politicians must stop being representatives of the downtown business machines, and we must hold our political leaders accountable. And this is what I was explaining in the first hour about our Westminster system of revolving door politics in the Caribbean that was inherited by the British. We may be crying out for justice while the party that we support is in opposition. But when that party gets into office, do not encourage them by ceasing your call for justice simply because they have arrived there. You have to make the politicians that you support stronger by your voice crying out for justice becoming louder. Second main concept by Kwame Ture was institutionalized racism, a phrase that he coined. So he did not coin the phrase black power, but he popularized it. But he did coin the phrase institutionalized racism. And in his book, Black Power, Kwame Ture defined institutionalized racism as the collective failure of an organization to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their color, culture, or ethnic origin. He said eventually institutionalized racism dominates major institutions within society that are responsible for justice, and it is reinforced by the actions of conformists and newcomers. And the tricky thing about institutionalized racism is you don't have to have a racist person in the system in order for that racism to work, because the racism is in the policy. The racism is in the bylaws. The racism is in the Constitution. So you bring someone into the mix who's not racist, but they're following the bylaws, the rules, the regulations, the instructions, and the Constitution. And so the racism becomes self-refueling. Third major concept by Kwame Ture was ghettoization. Now, prior to the Black Power philosophy of Kwame Ture, the term ghetto was largely used in reference to Jewish communities. But Kwame Ture used the term domestic colonialism to refer to what's happening to black communities in Western societies, or ghettoization, whereas during and under traditional British colonialism, we were a colony where all of the wealth that we produced, the resources, it all belonged to the mother country or the British Empire. And then in our Republican Constitution, it begins saying, well, wherever there was previous reference to Her Majesty the Queen, it is now replaced by His Excellency the President. So, again, even though we have a black face presiding in the seat of authority over the system, it's the same system of oppression, exploitation, tyranny, and injustice that the people are victims of. So in the same way that before, under British colonialism, everything that we produced, our wealth, our human resources, and human capital were exploited by the British Empire, under domestic colonialism, you have the exact same arrangement, but instead of a colony to a country, you have a ghetto to a society. So all of the wealth on terms of human capital, wealth generation, and human resources comes out of the ghettos. I remember back in the 1990s when we were looking for a building to rent. And I remember visiting the Eastern Nicholas Tower when it was new. And we were told that the rent per month, per floor, was $1.5 million. This was in the 1990s. $1.5 million per month for rental per floor. And there were about 30 floors coming up to, it was calculated at $50 million a month in rent. Now, the people who built that came from the ghetto and were given a wage that was probably enough food to eat for the month. But the owners have, from that same building, enough food for all of their generations and children's generations to eat for the rest of their lives. But where did the human capital come from? Where did the human resource come from? And where is the ownership on the part of the poor? So the rich can extract labor from poor communities at any moment in time. Use that labor from poor people, from poor communities, to create wealth. And then at the end of the construction of that building, the poor are once again unemployed with no property. But the wealthy who exploited that property for a few months or a couple years in construction can continue to live for the rest of their life. And we are programmed mentally to see the poor person. Again, look at the depth of it. The poor person with one food hamper who's trying to get a second food hamper, they are greedy. But the man with a building who's collecting $50 million in rent per month, who's putting up another one to collect another $50 million in rent per month, and then sets up another one, rents it to the government even though it's empty for more millions per month. They are not greedy. You see? But the person who's trying to get food is the greedy one. Now, me personally, I don't believe that the sister who said that has no compassion in her heart for the masses of the poor. But what I do understand, though, is as French philosopher Louis Althusser said, neo-Marxist philosopher, he said in capitalist societies, they teach both the rich and the poor ruling class ideology. So when the rich speak, they speak in a way to defend their status in society. But when the poor speak, the poor also speak to defend the status of the rich in the society and to justify their own poverty, helplessness, hopelessness, marginalization, and financial stress. So the narrative of the ruling class ideology is that the poor people deserve to be poor, and that it is entirely their own fault. Now, if you were elected into a government now, you have to speak that same narrative. You cannot go around the place calling the multi-million-dollar contract holders who are getting more and more millions of dollars in contracts, sometimes every 2 or 3 months, millions of dollars. You dare not call them greedy, because that's not part of the narrative of the ruling class ideology. And Louis Althusser says this ruling class ideology is disseminated through the media, through the justice system, through the educational curriculum. So the poor, ideologically, because of this ruling class ideology, live like crabs in a barrel, pulling each other down, so the rich could sit back and observe self-destruction among the poor. And through the injection of self-hatred and the failure still for our educational system to properly address black philosophy, not just black history, but black philosophy, to truly empower the minds of the masses for them to begin to see their condition as something that needs to be changed rather than justified. So this ghettoization that Kwame Ture spoke about is domestic colonialism. There's an exploitation of labor in the ghetto in the same way that there used to be exploitation of the colony by the empire. The fourth main point of principle by Kwame Ture was what he will always say to you when he greets you. When you meet Kwame Ture in person, he will point his finger at you and he'll say, "Ready for the revolution." Revolution simply means change. Change is transformation. Transformation out of the condition that we were placed in. But while we talk about a revolution, or a black revolution, or a mind revolution, we're focusing more on the word revolution than on the word ready. Being ready for the revolution. Being ready means being prepared. Having the capability at any moment to adjust to swift and immediate changes that place you in a disadvantageous position. Were we ready for the revolution when the COVID-19 pandemic hit us? How much food were we growing among ourselves within our own community? How much trade were we doing among each other? What kind of arrangements were in place within our communities to trade and exchange skills and talents? Or did we find ourselves in a dependent mode and dependent to those whom government already favors, who are already rich, whom are being favored to become even more economically empowered than they already are? How ready were we for that revolution? Well, The last day that I saw Kwame Ture is February 23rd, 1997. And an interesting thing is when I came into the Nation of Islam, of course, I always used to hear about Kwame Ture, and I read about him, heard he was from Trinidad, and was so proud of that fact. But when I went to the first annual Nation of Islam convention in Chicago, hosted by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, this massive arena, jam-packed, probably about 50, 60,000 black people there. And here I am for the first time. And when Minister Farrakhan came out, at the very beginning of his speech, he said, this is the first time I'm attending this convention, 1996. And I've attended between 10 and maybe 12 times since. So first time, 1996. Minister Farrakhan comes out and he says, this is the first year that our brother, Kwame Ture, is not with us as one of the opening speakers since 1981, which was the first year that Minister Farrakhan became the host of the convention as leader of the Nation of Islam. So every year from 1981, 82, 83, all the way up to 1996, Kwame Ture was an opening guest speaker for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And then Minister Farrakhan said, we need to remember our brother in our prayers, keep him in our hearts and minds because he's not well. Now, at that time, the Nation of Islam would have arranged for treatment for him in Cuba. And then the next year for the Nation of Islam convention in Chicago, which would have been 1997, Kwame Ture was there, and he was one of the opening speakers. And I spoke with him afterwards. That was the second time we had met in person. The first time would have been 1996 at the Spectacular Forum, when he visited Trinidad to speak, and he spoke at the Spectacular Forum. Now, in 1997, when I met him there, he said, ready for the revolution. And he asked about how the work is coming along in Trinidad, because we would have met just about 1 year before that for the first time in person. Now, being ready is staying conscious and resisting the urge to sell our souls in exchange for something material and temporary. Which leads us to the fifth point from Kwame Ture, the three words that he died saying. Organize, organize, organize. That we have to, among ourselves, put our differences aside, form coalitions, find our philosophical similarities, connect on the basis of them, and build with them. And whatever common struggles and challenges that we have as black people, we have to organize around them to make our output a lot more effective, to make our results a lot more visible, so that we could pass on that struggle to the next generation, because we're not going to complete it in this generation. Which brings us, once we organize, right back to point number one, which is black power. The power that is contained within and among us in our community. And Kwame Ture said the concept of black power must be adopted, and it rests on the fundamental premise of before a group can enter the open society, it must first close its ranks. In Trinidad, they talk about racial harmony and racial integration. Okay. But if we as a community are throwing stones at each other, hate each other, in conflict with one another, and our children killing each other. How could we make it as a priority to go unite first? Let's unite with the Chinese. Let's unite with the whites. Let's unite with the Indians. Let's unite with the Syrians. Let's, as a people, go and unite with the French people, but you're not even united with your neighbor. You don't even see yourself as one with your own people. As a matter of fact, you are swift to disown your collective identity with your own people. Anything black, anything African, you're quick to say, I am not. I am not that. Or I don't believe in that. I don't go along with that. But in the same breath, you're banging on the back door of someone else's community, begging to be let in, seeking acceptance. While where we live among our people is suffering, and we're selling each other out. So, I had asked the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when we were constructing the Black Agenda building for his approval in us naming the building after Kwame Ture. And even though in this society we still have roads and highways and streets named after Winston Churchill, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Lord Kitchener, the British warlord, not the Calypsonian, and Adam Smith and Baden Powell and Ralph Abercrombie and Chacon and Picton de la Perouse and Frederick, Henry, Charlotte, George, Nelson, Duncan, and Piccadilly, and Queen and Prince and Duke and Gordon. Even though for all these years we had streets named after those people and statues after Lord Harris and Christopher Columbus, nothing after Kwame Ture, our greatest hero of all. Well, now we have the Kwame Ture Education Center, and we have the programs running there, educating our youth. Our classes are running every day, Monday to Friday, in the evenings. I teach the social studies on Wednesdays, but we have maths on Mondays, English on Tuesdays, English literature as well. We have accounts and principles of business on Thursdays, human and social biology on Fridays. We have study skills, we have black history. And in between, we arrange different sections. Young people. Most of our students are between the ages of 16 and 24. Yes, we have some in their late 20s and early 30s. Most of our students at the Kwame Ture Center, most of them are between the ages of, say, 17 and 22. And right now, due to the lockdown and so on, we're doing the classes on Zoom, but we were doing in-person classes up to, March or April, in our auditorium, properly spaced out, functioning perfectly. And the pride we feel in those young people. As a matter of fact, last thing, and then I'm opening back up the lines, but we are 1 year up from the Black Lives Matter protests that emanated out of Movar. And Sister Roxanne Mohammed, on the day that there was the rioting in Port of Spain, Sister Roxanne had went over on the Beetham to live on Facebook to talk to the young men about what they see as their objectives in this struggle because they were burning tires. And her sister, Roxanne, she went over there live on Facebook, and she's talking to the youth. And, you know, she had a conversation over an hour, going from district to district, talking to the young people. And, you know, just think, one of those young men in particular who were burning tires and, you know, in total protest mode is now one of our diligent students at the center. You see, not everyone is going to respond to an advertisement in a newspaper or online. Sometimes you have to go and get our people. And if I tell you over the last 20 years, some of the experiences that we have had with some people, and then where we are with them today, man, it's testimony. Minister Farrakhan said it. You have to hit the street. You have to do it. You have to walk through the community, meet the people. One-on-one, face-to-face. We have to connect. We have to network. We have to interact. If you know a brother or sister who's in a particular business that you may be interested in, you connect them. If you know someone who has a particular problem or challenge, and you know someone else within our community who's offering a good or a service as a business, link them. It happens naturally with other people. Listen, last thing, let me say this to you. Someone in Guyana sent me an email last week, and they said, Brother David, someone sent this to me and said it's circulating in Trinidad. What are your thoughts on this? Can you shed any light on this? And basically what it was, I wouldn't bother to read it, but it's like a 2-page letter or so, where it's purported to be a racist Indian person who's talking about a plan. So it's a letter to other Indian people in Trinidad. And it's saying, you know, we have to dominate the country. We as Indian people have to take over, and we have to make sure that the niggers don't rise or that they don't progress. And we have to ensure that only our businesses are supported. So we have to make sure and uphold each other and not let the niggers infiltrate and all that kind of talk. And the brother in Guyana, he said, Brother David, you know anything about this? What are your thoughts about this? And I said to them, I said, well, I cannot confirm, but I believe it's probably false. And I said, you know why? I said, because they don't have to put that in writing. They don't have to write a letter to other people in their community and say, hey, let's build each other up. Let's support one another. Let's keep the others out. Let's empower our businesses. Let's connect. They don't have to put that in writing. As a matter of fact, no other race or ethnic group in this country needs to write that down as a plan or program or strategy. Only us have been brainwashed to the degree where the default setting among us is to support everyone else but us. We're the ones who have to teach that, pass it on to our children, explain why black power is necessary, organize ourselves, have conversations and discussions and workshops and seminars about black people loving black people, about black people empowering black people, about black people supporting other black people. But no one else has to have a meeting about that. No one else has to form a movement to try to get their people to support their own people. No! Only we do. But then again, I still wouldn't put it past some of them to put that in writing. Let's go back to the phone lines, 342-0081 and 466-5391. But let's just use the 342-0081 line. The other one apparently is giving some problems. Caller, are you there? Caller, can you hear me? Caller? Are you there? All right. Don't know what's going on with your line. You can try calling us again. 342-0081. Are you there, caller?
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
Rastafari.
Blessings.
Well, strong other Tehran this morning, touching every nick and cranny. You understand? But us as Africans, we must know. Niggas and coolie will always have them say. But we as Africans know. African must know he is an African and not a nigga. When an Indian doesn't know he's an Indian and not a coolie. When a coolie and a nigga talk, the black clad, we don't have to worry with that. We have to stick together, understand each other, over one another. And know them have to talk. You say a discussion about them. So, I hear discuss about Manning with your own. Manning was a good man. I love him. But I always prefer Rowley as before him. And he have a right to put the leadership in Dr. Rowley and instead of calling the election in 2010. He know that too. And us all plenty of us know that. Even in 27 when he called the election before time. It was good, but in that form he wasn't strong. He realized he was sick. And he had a right to step down. I don't have my case like this.
Thank you. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Brother David.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Three Nation again. Right. You know, in speaking about Mr. Manning, I'm going only Mr. Manning, it's you. He literally started to deplete, right? The recruits for the drug trade and for crime. I remember it listen, and the economy was such that you could have stand up at the side of the road with snacks in your hand and it would have sold out. What he did, he didn't go directly at the problem, he went around the problem. And when the recruits of criminology started to deplete, the people who had interest in keeping crime going, to keep the drug selling and all that kind of thing, they stood behind the complainers and the propagandists and the PLM haters and the Patrick Manning haters. I remember you look how well you spoke of education, and I remember that when you spoke about in UE. UE was a ghost town, brother. I remember that. I used to go in UE and relax and chill out, read a book or whatever sometimes. And what you said there is so true. When Mr. Manning comes, the place gets flooded. And I remember many people who educated themselves was angry about it because probably the amount of money they spend and the status quo, their status was being depleted. Mr. Morgan Job, the late Mr. Morgan Job, God rest his soul, was one of them people who started to spit upon the UE education. I don't know if you can remember that, Brother David. You can remember that?
Vaguely, yes.
Vaguely, yeah, but Morgan Job started to criticize the education, say the education is UE is good no more, just because Mr. Patrick Manning. We have our own house, people of a darker hue, who, when a black person does something, they rise up against it because it would deplete their status. And that's what happened in the brother time. He was depleting the status of everybody by educating the masses, by making education about the black women took up the opportunity en masse. And the black men kind of stick on it. They stick on that opportunity. Plenty of the black brothers get caught up in a in a web of, how to put it, boy, misinformation and inability to see future and inability to prepare for future. Like I say, the objective view now. You know, and the brother was a real world-class leader. I just call him one of the best, because I think other countries followed our model after, in terms of a couple of other countries follow the model of Gate and stuff like that. And, you know, the development that was brought forward. And this is what I just try to say, Brother David, in closing, the objective view. Yeah, what happened is that the human being is such that they can analyze all probabilities and head in the direction of the better probability, but only a sense of objectivity. The outside look at things, you know, and you get more data, understand where you are now and how what you have available now, what is happening. Everything wouldn't come, you know, wrapped in a robe or with a certain African hair tie. You know, leaders don't come looking like, it may not come looking like that. They may come secretly, because remember, you're up against a force that need, you know, regressive minds and criminal minds in order for it to be sustained. That is the economic system I'm talking about, the capitalist system. So we need to develop that outside view in the now to see what could be done. And I want to point at the Tobago issue, that piece of fight down that's taking place as far as the opposition is concerned. Then you're going to push certain black people in the front now, right? And say, we for black people and Mama Gairina, but when you have to prove it legislative-wise, to show us, well, yeah, all right, we could give black people something here. You know what they're coming up and they're saying? Nothing for you. That is what they're saying. By refusing this bill here that before the parliament here. And then they go and fool people now with a couple black people in the front and all kind of thing, and they take that chain up. So we need to develop that objective view where we could see when the evil ones sneaking in behind certain frivolous reasons that they want to oppose this and oppose that, and they're using you to strengthen their view. That is what we had to be aware of, and it has happened is a reoccurring decimal in Trinidad and Tobago. Have a nice day. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And interestingly, one of the only meetings that Minister Farrakhan had with any of the Caribbean leaders that I was not in was when he met Mr. Manning. This would have been September 1996. We had just had a press conference at the Hilton Hotel, and Mr. Manning came to see Minister Farrakhan. And I had to head to Tobago ahead of the team, and I was leaving the Hilton. I saw Mr. Manning in the lobby, spoke to him briefly, and then he would have went up. They would have came down to take him upstairs to meet Minister Farrakhan. And I was not in that meeting. And thinking back now, that would have probably been a really, really, really special one. Caller, good morning.
Good morning to you, Brother David.
Good morning, Port of Spain. How you doing?
Well, I always do listen. I know. You know, it isn't, first of all, it is interesting that this program is held yesterday after 5 years of the passing of Mr. Patrick Manning.
Yep.
So rest in peace. You know, Brother David, this is a very good piece of information that you're bringing out here with Patrick Manning meeting with Farrakhan.
Yep, that's right, 1996.
1996. I don't put on that in the record. That is one that I
can tell you the date too. It would have been September the 6th.
You know, that is one that I don't have in my record. And you know, it is so sad to see that what you said is quite true. You don't have to put anything out there. And our poor Trinidadian has been used window dressed by political party, especially the opposition, to attack the brothers in African. And I cannot see for one differently how they can understand that. It has been running through, David, right through. You watch all the African Trinidadians that went into the PT government. Where are they now? All of them gone. Window dressing to the height. The other was Sister Julia Davies. Window dressing again. That is why I was so upset with my brother Marvin. I was just calling first name. That you had was correct, saying that he had an Indian attorney. What happened to the African attorneys? We have many of them here. You see, we are being fooled or being paid a little phone call to damage our brothers and sisters of Trin African. And that is so wrong. Look at, for instance, for me, I was lied upon, made to look as one of the fortune of paying people to talk in favor of her. And you know, up to no one get an apology, which my daughters and children is saying that I must get. And I agree with them. You don't need the name people name for a party which we saw them in office for 5 years, 3 months and 14 days, did nothing towards the African Trinidadians, more than use them. And I feel so sad when I hear some of my brothers who used to come and talk to me and say, boy, for the saying, you really right, you know, this lady really in there, you know. I hear them defending her now. I am surprised. I don't want to call her name. You know, I'm talking about how people ain't getting this and that. Brother David, I walk 3 months up and down with a son of mine, right, to get an infirm. One of the callers who failed me, he was one who was trying to get. But because we just look like who we look at, we didn't get anything. I hear him today defending them. You know, it is so sad. I just want to just tell myself, stay away from getting on radio. When I listen to them going and calling people PNM hack and PNM this, and Dr. Rowley is a host, what they call him? You know, I want to get all so quick.
We understand what you mean. No need to repeat it.
You know, it is shameless to see that no condemnation was made by these callers of them. You know? So, again, thank you for the information on Mr. Patrick Manning. May God rest his soul. Brother David, I always do listen, and I learn many things from your program. And last of all, I must say that we are a sovereign nation, and we have no right to be under the code and commute of the United States of America. We have the right to support any country. You know? So when I hear people saying that we disturb America, one calling, you know, I am saying, not me. We are a sovereign nation. We have a right to support Venezuela, Cuba. Anyway, look at Cuba. Best health care, best doctors coming from there. We must side with them with the sanctions against Cuba. Give me a break. I will leave it here. I hope that I will leave it here, understand exactly what it is to be a sovereign nation. Thank you very much, Brother David, for allowing me this contribution today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you know, one of the major issues that they really attacked Patrick Manning on was the issue of the so-called mixed communities. Mr. Manning had announced it would have been somewhere around 2007 that they are going to build mixed communities. And he was called racist. There was this view that if they had done that it would have been disrespectful and dishonorable to different communities within the country. He gave statistics, and the whole issue of the redistribution of the Caroni lands. And I remember clearly, I mean, we made it our objective to give the history of the Caroni lands and the fact that African people were the first people to establish the sugarcane industry in this country after a death toll of 1,000 Africans in 1 year. That was 1788, according to Professor Bridget Barrington in History of Trinidad and Tobago. And that hundreds of Africans will die establishing the sugarcane industry by cutting down the trees, clearing out the roads, literally doing heavy equipment, quarrying with hand tools. And it was that history of African people in the Caroni lands that gave a justification of African people being candidates to be recipients of some of the Caroni lands. Because prior to that, there was this view that the Caroni land should go exclusively to the East Indian community. And when that suggestion was made, Mr. Manning was hated for it. And they were saying these people from Laventille might come and live next to you. Extremely racially charged language. Caller, the countdown is on. Good morning.
Oh, very good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, I wasn't even thinking of calling in, but
glad you did.
As I am, but I am so moved by this story. What you spoke about with Sister Roxanne.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That young man who was down there, and now he's at your learning center, your academy. Listen, Brother Muhammad, I can't say it enough and give thanks to you for your relentless work all through the years, and your school, your academy must stay the beacon that it is. I also want to agree with you with the letter thing that probably they don't have to write letters like that.
Of course.
But they are getting so desperate now that chances are that they will. Because a lot of people are using this media, social media thing, and people are getting away with madness with it. So the possibility exists that they will do something like that because of they getting ready.
Yeah, that's why I say I wouldn't put it past anyone.
I wouldn't put it past them. I just wouldn't put it past them. So thank you for all the information, that about Mr. Manning and everything. Thank you so much. Keep that school going. I mean, you are a beacon of light, as I continue to say. And this is not just to butter you up or anything. It is the truth. We have to look out for our young people, and this is what you are doing. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for your encouragement, your support, your contribution.
My pleasure.
Yes.
And that is what we have to do. We have to make sure that you stay. Make sure, ensure that your learning academy prosper and go on and go on and go on. And once again, to use what you told us this morning here, we have to unite among ourselves before we can think about uniting with anybody else. That is first and foremost, uniting among ourselves. And that is so beautiful and so easy to do if people only know how sweet and easy that is.
Internal group solidarity. Well, thank you so much, and this is where I leave it for this morning. I'll be back next week, Saturday, but look out for me on Facebook Live Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, and on IWER TV Sundays, 8 o'clock as well. Stay tuned to the Street 919 FM. Assalamu alaikum.